Hi there, this is Ellery Galvin with LISA, the Laboratory for Interdisciplinary Statistical Analysis at CU Boulder, and this is our video collection about programming in R. Today's video is going to be about creating variables. Let's get started. So far in R, we've seen how to calculate things with numbers alone. We've said things like 2 times 3 or 2 times 3, hit enter, and we see that R knows how to calculate. But those numbers themselves, 2 and 3, they're not very meaningful. In a good program, we need to create meaning for our work by creating variables. Programming languages are fundamentally languages. We're trying to communicate our ideas in a very precise way that both the computer and our future selves and potentially other programmers can understand. Variables are the answer. Variables are names for values you wish to work with. Let's look at the structure of how to define a variable. We start by typing the variable name. Then we create the assignment operator, which is the less than sign followed by the dash. Notice it looks like a little arrow to the left. It indicates that we're going to take the variable value on the right and assign it to the name variable name. Let's look at a first example. Suppose I want to think about how many apples I have at my farm stand. I can define a variable called total apples and say I start with 0. When I hit enter, R doesn't reply at all because all we've done is assign the variable total apples. But notice in the upper right-hand corner, we can now see in our environment that there's a variable total apples with value 0. You'll notice I separated the words total and apples with a period. It's also common practice to use underscores or camel case, periods, underscores, and camel case often separate words. Variables cannot contain spaces. So for example, we can also say total underscore apples is 0. Or camel case is total apples is 0. But if we try to do total space apples, oops, R tries to autocomplete to something that I didn't intend. If I ignore that autocomplete and press enter, it says unexpected symbol because there's no variable called total. So it doesn't understand what I'm trying to do. I can also use numbers in my variable names. I can say total apples 2. That works out just fine. But if I try to put the 2 in the front of my variable, that's not going to work. Unfortunately, R only allows us to put numbers in places other than the beginning. It could be in the middle as well. So we've created a lot of variables, variations on the words total apples. And maybe we want to remove one or more of them so that they don't confuse us in the program later. There's a function called rm. If we just type the letters rm and then parentheses and put inside the parentheses one of our variables, notice that as I'm typing, R is showing me all the variables that match what I've typed so far. If I type total apples, notice that total apples with an underscore is no longer available in my environment. If I want to delete all my variables in the environment and start fresh, I can click this Broom symbol in the upper right. And now all my variables are gone. If I try to look for total apples, R no longer knows what it is. So let's look at a couple examples of what I can do with my variables. Suppose that each crate of apples contains 36 apples. And suppose I've got 10 crates. So my total number of apples is apple crate times 10. Variables allow me to refer to the value 36 by its name, apple crate. Now suppose I sell 50 apples. I can now update my value of total apples by saying, take the previous value of total apples and subtract apples sold. Now you can see total apples is only 310 instead of 360. In general, you can always refer to the previous value of a variable when reassigning it to something new. Let's look at some exercises. I'll let you guys read this, give it a shot, and when we come back, we'll work the problem together. Go ahead and pause the video now. All right, welcome back. Let's calculate the number of books I'll read in a lifetime and the number of books I'll own in a lifetime. Suppose that I received my first book as a gift to own, and it was the first book I read. Create a variable representing the books I own and assign it a value of 1. Well, a good descriptive name for a variable representing the books I own might be books owned. I'll use the assignment operator, and I'll assign it the value 1. Now I'm going to hit Command-Shift-Enter to run this cell. If I look down in the console, I'll see that I've assigned books owned is 1. Now create another variable representing the books I've read and assign it to the value of the first variable you created. All right, so I'll create books read and assign to it books owned. Very good. I received 2 more books from my friends and family, but I haven't read them yet. Update your variable. So since I now own 2 additional books, I'm going to take books owned and assign it to be the previous value of books owned plus 2 more books. Now notice when we first assigned books read, we assigned the value of books owned. A subtle question you might ask is, did updating the value of books owned change the value of books read? Let's check. Books owned is currently a value of 3, but books read is still a value of 1, even though I updated the value of books owned. Notice that R hasn't replied yet to any of our code cells because we are only using assignment statements. If we want R to respond, we can use the print function to print books owned and books read. And R will now tell us that it's 3 and 1. For the next 50 years, I will read 1 book a week, checked out from the public library. I absolutely love 30% of them, and I decide to buy them. create some helpful variables to represent this situation, and compute about how many books I have read or owned from my first book through the next 50 years. I think it would be helpful to define a variable for the number of books I read in a year. I'll say books per year is going to be the number of weeks in the year. Now, if I want to know the total number of books read, I'm going to take books read and say the previous value of books read plus the number of books per year times the number of years, and I'll print the result. Now, as for books owned, I'm going to have to take the number of books I already owned and add to it books per year times the number of years times the proportion of them that I liked. And I'll print books owned. And that's going to be it. So recapping today's video, we saw how to create some variables. We saw that the structure of a variable assignment is to write the variable name and to assign to it with the assignment operator a variable value. We saw that variables can contain periods and underscores or camel case to separate words. And we saw that variables cannot contain spaces. We also saw the Broom icon in the environment window clears the defined variables. Extensions in future videos might include assigning other kinds of objects to variables and checking what class of object a variable contains. We can also check how much memory a variable is using for those memory-intensive applications. Thanks for joining me for this video about creating variables.